Anyone here familiar with IMI agency? Okay. I'll talk about the company a little bit, and then I'll give you a little information about myself. IMI is the largest third-party beverage marketing agency. We are very proud to be in business for about 35 years. I haven't been there quite that long. IMI's largest client is Marriott International. We're very proud to support them on their now 20 different beverage programs across the country and a little bit globally as well. We work with large national chains such as Marriott, as well as most other large national hotel chains. We're very proud to also work with a lot of large restaurant groups, concessionaires like Levy and Aramark, and then also more unique concepts like Italy with their presence in their stores across the US, as well as now wine.com as well. We help facilitate RFPs, beverage partner meetings, training, and resources for the locations so that they're more knowledgeable about the program that's been set out by a home office. And menu printing, training, and education. So a little bit about myself. I'm here 6 years. I started off as an operator. I was National Director of Food and Beverage for House of Blues and Live Nation. And before that, ran bars, restaurants, and nightclubs around the Chicago market. So most of my expertise lies within the on-premise, and I know so much of what we've talked about the last couple days is the nuts and bolts and everything in between. That's been really informative for me because so much of what I do is obviously about on-premise consumption. So what I wanted to talk about first is what is a national chain? I think this is important to talk about because it's not so much parameters that us as a company put onto them. Sometimes this is criteria that distributors look for before they will honor national account pricing. Sometimes this is something that's set by a supplier before they will call on a particular account. And these are kind of vague parameters, but I think they're really helpful to know as you're approaching these opportunities. Sometimes there's a specified number of locations, whether that's 200 or 20 in a particular state or market. Sometimes it's a number of different concepts that exist within a chain. There's usually one buyer or one decision maker as part of the program. Sometimes there's a committee approach or other people that are involved in decisions, but at the end of the day, a lot of suppliers and distributors want to see one person that is the primary point of contact. And then really, really important for our conversation today is recognizing that there may be a limited formal RFP window for national accounts, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like and how to navigate around that. Also important to note within national accounts, for some of the clients that I mentioned and certainly others, there's a longer business cycle. For people who are new in calling on national accounts, sometimes it's surprising that they're not hearing back and they've submitted for an RFP, and what does that delay look like and why is it taking so long? So the complexity and scale of their operations, sometimes, you know, the old phrase, the old big ships turn slowly, I think is applicable here. They need to ensure consistency and compliance across numerous locations and markets. I think groups talked about it yesterday as well, where large national chains are maybe slower specifically in the on-premise, maybe slower to adopt new trends, whether it's the low and no trend or certain flavor profiles. I know yesterday we also talked about agave and brown spirits being big. Those are definitely the case, but I think sometimes when you're talking about a large restaurant chain that's casual dining, maybe they're slower to pick things up, but certainly good to note. There's other sometimes strategic goals that could make things turn a little bit slower as well, so securing placements with national accounts is just something to have in the back of your mind. I think we've hit that enough. The panel yesterday that Sid led, where he talked with the on-premise operators about route to market, was really important to hear them talk about relationships. So I wanted to take some additional time to expand upon that. As a newcomer or someone who's not currently doing business with the panelists that were up here, or certainly other national account or regional account operators, you might say, you know, how can I start doing business if we haven't historically done business and obtained a meeting. So that's what we're going to talk about for a little bit here. Some of these sound like they might be old school or things that you know about. I think relationships are king. So if there's an opportunity to meet with that person, if you're in their market, to take them to lunch or do a happy hour and have more casual conversation about your portfolio, what makes your brands unique, how those brands correlate to what they're interested in and what their scope is, even if there isn't necessarily an RFP going on, because during that RFP window, it might be more stringent. So having that opportunity to talk to the decision maker or maybe the group at that time would be really fruitful. And I think that informal setting, maybe it's at their office, but more ideally it would be somewhere else like an on-premise establishment. And obviously because they work in the on-premise, that's going to be something that they're comfortable with. I think staying in touch is really important as well, sharing pertinent updates, whether it's additional markets that you're now in or accolades, or maybe you're now certified B Corp, anything along those lines that would be helpful to reach out and continue that conversation with the buyers, particularly relevant. The panel yesterday also spoke about sustainability and diversity being important. I think if you're able to speak to those points and other things that you might find are important to their company through basic Google searches or AI searches, I think it is really fruitful to add to the conversation as well. But again, consistency doesn't necessarily indicate that it's weekly frequency. The panel yesterday also referenced about, email communication as being their preferred method. I think that's certainly great leading up to having that in-person conversation and then following that to engage and talk about those updates. A little bit more on this. Again, when on-premise clients have their formal RFP going on, in most cases we have an online platform where brands are able to submit for our clients' consideration. In addition to that, we know that it's really important for people to be able to have an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting to talk about your brands and explain what's unique and different. As you would imagine, that opportunity is highly desired. So the opportunity to meet with that person outside of the RFP, whether it's 3 months before, 4 months before, whatever works for your schedule is really crucial. And of course, if you're not able to make it to their market to have that opportunity, I think there's other events throughout the industry, large events like this, or things that are more on-premise focused, like Vibe, which takes place in San Diego once a year, HEE, which Rachel spoke about yesterday, happens twice a year. So if you're not able to go to their market and you're looking for incremental opportunities to break bread and have that in-person conversation, those are good things to look out for. When you are communicating with these decision makers, sharing resources and your knowledge about the challenges. Maybe it's a concept that doesn't move a lot of wine. Maybe talking about whether it's wine on tap or wine bag in the box. I think it's really fruitful to talk about the cost of goods, the training that goes along with dating bottles for bars and restaurants. It's been something that restaurant operators have done for years and still, for some reason, is a hurdle, and people can't properly date stamp bottles, and you end up getting a glass that, or a guest end up getting a glass that is less than stellar. So but there's opportunities to improve that experience, and you guys are aware of those. When you do have these meetings with buyers, it's important to talk about what business you may already be doing as well and understanding their current business. So if there's things that you're seeing that really align with the core values of your company or your brands, bringing those to light, I think is really helpful. If there's things that you're aware of in the trade and trend that maybe aren't necessarily in your wheelhouse, but you still feel like you can contribute that, I think that makes you a great partner as well, or a good potential partner for the future. I'm talking about trends and metrics and other data that you might have access to. And certainly understanding their business and their challenges. And I think asking those questions is really prudent as well. Strategic planning and support, choosing what you present. A lot of people have a vast book. Just because you have a lot of things to talk about and a lot of options for them, I think being sensitive to what would work for them is really important, as opposed to submitting or talking about everything that you might have available to you. If you do have other things that do well for you in the on-premise, or maybe not the on-premise, but talking about what your experience looks like in Whole Foods or Kroger, I think those are really valuable. Talking about your distribution, and even if you might only be in 2 markets, still being transparent about that and what your route to market looks like for the future. Whether you have distribution through a large distributor such as Southern or RNDC, or someone that's smaller. I know that it's not everyone's hope, but sometimes we've had problems where a smaller distributor in the market isn't able to deliver to a large client because their insurance rider is not significant enough. I think that's a very small example, but being transparent and knowing who your distributor is in each of the markets that you serve is important. Certainly from a pricing perspective, speaking to national average price is a big thing in our world. Even if you're just in 4 markets, knowing what that average price is for those 4 markets. We know that legally speaking, the price is set by the distributor in each state, but having the ability to reference it quickly and in the slides or the content that you're sharing with the decision makers is really helpful and important. Along those same lines, state-by-state pricing is really important as well. We know that in control states that things often jump and skyrocket, and people want to know what they're looking at going into it, whether it's wine, spirits, or something else. Activation ideas. People are always looking for unique strategies to program brands. Maybe it's an old-fashioned cart for your whiskey that can come up tableside, and you also have a smoking cloche or something along those lines. Maybe it's having brand ambassadors that can come in and teach a staff, and then in the evening they can help walk guests through a unique Scotch flight. Any tools and resources that you have available to help program and support your brands is really helpful to on-premise operators, and I would say we're seeing that bleed over to retail as well, in how you can activate and support the brands, whether it's through tasting experiences or something that's more 3-dimensional in retail stores. If you haven't been to an Italy, for example, they have very 3D experiences that you can go in. They're Instagrammable, and you can experience a cocktail and take photos and take a little toy home with you, or a POS. And then last but not least would be not something that you need to have, but if you do have it, it's good to reference it, is voluntary beverage marketing support that the brand can use towards menu printing, training, and education. We certainly know that up-and-coming brands might not have that available, but just something to keep on your radar as well. I wasn't looking at the clock, so hopefully I didn't talk too quickly, but to the extent we have time for questions, I'm happy to answer them. So the question was, what is the main support that chains are looking for from suppliers? I think it goes back to a couple of the things we talked about. It could be menu printing, training, and education support in the form of dollars. I think it could be training and on-premise support for staff, and you're going to go in there and talk about the brands and taste the staff out on that line. I think it could be those activation tools, and it could also be data and trend metrics that you're able to share. No? Yes?
I work for our Australian government here in the U.S., basically supporting Australian F&B food suppliers that have innovative products that match with the interests and demands of U.S. retailers. And I'm very interested in knowing how we might be able to work with third-party suppliers such as yours, and providing any innovative brands from Australia that might be a good fit for some of the national retailers that you're working with.
Yeah, thank you. So in most cases, we would have the brands submit for themselves. But if you are the only voice for those brands domestically, of course, you'd be able to present them. And when I say present them, we have an RFP platform. It's our intention that when we send out an RFP for one of our clients on their behalf, that we understand the asks of what they're looking for, wines from specific regions, what they're looking for NAP, whether it's by the glass or by the bottle or both, and certainly similarly in the spirits world. It's our intention that when we send that out, we have a database of over 600 suppliers and distributor partners that goes to, and suppliers are encouraged to submit brands for our clients' consideration through that portal. So if you have distribution, that's the one ask to be included in that promise, or excuse me, that process. Yes?
What do you find to be the best way to broach the topic of activations? Because I love to do the experiential marketing, but so often it reaches into the world of like dollars per case. Like I would love to participate in someone's program without falling into the trap of paying someone to be in the program.
Yeah. So when you say activations, are you talking about retail or on-premise as an example?
Either or. You were talking
Okay.
about the experiential marketing concepts of
Yeah.
it, where you can go in and you can set up, a tasting in Italy or a 3D,
Yeah.
whatever. But so often you'll go into, there's no reason to, then they'll just say we need to spend per case. And so how do you find it to be effective to redirect that into an experiential situation?
Yeah. Some people will always want that support. I think others should have the visibility and understanding that if your activation that you're willing to execute and have the capability to do so would outweigh the impact of the monetary support, I think that's important to share, if that makes sense. So if the activation is strong enough, then they shouldn't necessarily need and count on that monetary support as well.